Final part of Chapter 10, The Economics of Sanity. The essence of tomorrow's economy, declares the Stanford Research Institute in a report by its Long-Range Planning Service, will be an emphasis upon the inner as well as the material needs of the individuals and groups. This new emphasis, SRI suggests, will arise not merely from the demands of the consumer, but from the very need of the economy to survive. In a nation where all essential material needs can be filled by perhaps no more than 3/4 or even half of the productive capacity, a basic adjustment is required to keep the economy healthy. It is this convergence of pressures from the consumer and from those who wish to keep the economy growing that will propel the techno-societies towards the experiential production of the future. The movement in this direction can be delayed. The poverty-stricken masses of the world may not stand idly by as the world's favoured few traverse the path towards psychological self-indulgence. There is something morally repellent about one group seeking to gratify itself psychologically, pursuing novel and rarefied pleasures, while the majority of mankind lives in wretchedness or starvation. The techno-societies could defer the arrival of experientialism, could maintain a more conventional economy for a time by maximising traditional production, shifting resources to environmental quality control, and then launching absolutely massive anti-poverty and foreign aid programmes. By creaming off excess productivity and in effect giving it away, the factories can be kept running, the agricultural surpluses used up, and the society can continue to focus on the satisfaction of material wants. A 50-year campaign to erase hunger from the world, for example, would not only make excellent moral sense, but would buy the techno-societies badly needed time for an easier transition to the economy of the future. Such a pause might give us time to contemplate the philosophical and psychological impact of experiential production. If consumers can no longer distinguish clearly between the real and the simulated, if whole stretches of one's life may be commercially programmed, we enter into a set of socio-economic problems of breathtaking complexity. These problems challenge our most fundamental beliefs, not merely about democracy or economics, but about the very nature of rationality and sanity. One of the great unasked questions of our time has to do with the balance between vicarious and non-vicarious experience in our lives. No previous generations have been exposed to 1/10 the amount of vicarious experiences that we lavish on ourselves and our children today. And no one anywhere has any real idea about the impact of this monumental shift on personality. Our children mature physically more rapidly than we did. The age of first menstruation continues to drop 4 to 6 months every decade. The population grows taller sooner. It is clear that many of our young people, products of television and instant access to oceans of information, also become precocious intellectually. But what happens to emotional development as the ratio of vicarious experience to real experience rises? Does the step up of vicariousness contribute to emotional maturity, or does it in fact retard it? And what then happens when an economy in search of a new purpose seriously begins to enter into the production of experiences for their own sake, experiences that blur the distinction between the vicarious and the non-vicarious, the simulated and the real? One of the definitions of sanity itself is the ability to tell real from unreal. Shall we need a new definition? We must begin to reflect on these problems, for unless we do, and perhaps even if we do, service will in the end triumph over manufacture and experiential production over service. The growth of the experiential sector might just be an inevitable consequence of affluence, for the satisfaction of man's elemental material needs opens the way for new, more sophisticated gratifications. We are moving from a gut economy to a psyche economy because there is only so much gut to be satisfied. Beyond this, we are also moving swiftly in the direction of a society in which objects, things, physical constructs are increasingly transient, not merely man's relationships with them, but the very things themselves. It may be that experiences are the only products which, once bought by the consumer, cannot be taken away from him, cannot be disposed of, like non-returnable pop bottles or nicked razor blades. For the ancient Japanese nobility, every flower, every serving bowl or obi was freighted with surplus meaning. Each carried a heavy load of coded symbolism with ritual significance. The movement towards the psychologization of manufactured goods takes us in this direction, but it collides with the powerful thrust towards transience that makes the objects themselves so perishable. Thus, we shall find it easier to adorn our services with symbolic significance than our products. And in the end, we shall pass beyond the service economy, beyond the imagination of today's economists. We shall become the first culture in history to employ high technology to manufacture that most transient yet lasting of products, the human experience. That concludes chapter 10, and the next chapter, chapter 11, is called The Fractured Family.